Hello everybody, welcome to another session of Python for Natural Language Processing. In this video we are going to learn how to define functions. Particularly we are going to look at what are functions, variables used in functions, returning values of functions, functions with arguments, and functions with unspecified number of arguments. We have been using functions in all our programs till now. For example, we have used a function, length of a string. We have mostly used string functions. We have also used a function to convert the word into lowercase or uppercase, right? But we are going to define our own functions now. All those functions we have used, they exist somewhere, or either in Python or in other packages. How are we going to define a function? Functions are defined with a keyword def, and that keyword is followed by a function name, and after the function name we use parenthesis followed by a colon. This is the syntax of a function. And after the colon, as we used for if control, while control, with a tab we use a block of statements. Let's look at an example here. Here is an example. Def is the keyword, my function is the function name, and followed by parenthesis, then a colon. This is followed by a block of statements. The two statements here given are print statements. Print, this is a function. Print, that's all it does. These 3 lines is the function called my function, which we have defined. Just defining a function is not enough. We need to invoke the function. How do we invoke the function? We invoke the function by using the function name. Here you can see my function and then empty parenthesis. This command will invoke the function which we have already defined. So when you run this program, it prints 2 lines. This is a function and that's all it does. Functions allow us to simplify repetitive code. That is, we can simplify the code. We don't need to repeat certain commands or certain statements which we need sometimes. How do we do that? Look at this program given here. Here is a definition. Define def my funct, and then you have parenthesis colon, and you are printing 2 lines. One is colorless green ideas, the other is sleep furiously. And this is your invoking. This is the command which you are going to use for invoking the function. Now, how do we know that this is avoiding repetition? Look at this. Number is a variable and we are assigning a value. How are we assigning the value? We are getting a number from the user through input. We have already used this in our last class. Input, enter a number, then the user gives a number which will be assigned to the num variable. Then if that num, that is the integer num, is less than 5, then my func is used. The definition we have already given here. We are using the my function here. Else print your number is big. That is, if the user gives a number 5 or above, then it prints my number was big. So what does this program do? It actually gets a number from the user, and if the number is less than 5, it prints colorless green ideas, sleep furiously. So it prints the 2 lines and then it stops, right? what's happening in this program now? These two lines, we are not using them here again in the if control. We are just calling the function. So the repetition is avoided. So that's what we are saying. Functions allow us to simplify repetitive code. Let's go further. How do we use variables in functions? A variable created inside a function is available inside the function. That is, we cannot use that function outside it. That is, we cannot use the variable which is created in a function outside the function. Right? What happens if we use it? It gives you an error. For example, this program will not work. Why? Because you have defined my function giving a variable word where you are taking from the user a value for the word variable, and then the function is closed here. You are returning the function. After that, you are using the variable word to find out its length and saying if it is less than 5, then print your word wasn't long enough. This program will go into an error, right? Because the variable word is not outside the function, it is inside the function here. But variables outside a function are accessible inside the function. Such variables are called global variables. Like, look at this program. We have word variable and you are taking the value from the user and assigned it to the word variable. Then you are defining the function. Def myfunc parenthesis colon print this is your word and word. This variable word, where does it get its value? It gets it from outside. The word variable is defined outside and brought it inside the function. So you myfunc, you are invoking the function. Then if the length of the word is less than 5, your word wasn't long enough, right? Now this program works because the variable word is defined outside the function and brought and acts and is used inside the function, whereas this one will not work because the word variable is defined or is used inside the function and we are trying to use it outside the function. How do we return values of functions? Each function which is defined has certain statements inside. What it does is uses the statements. If it's a print, it prints. If it has to take a value from the user, it takes. Then it may concatenate, it may calculate numbers or calculate values. It can do anything with the input which we give, and then that value is returned as a return value. How does it do? So the return value of function follows the word return. So that is, this is the keyword for us. Return is a keyword, and return need not be last in the function. It can be embedded in other structures like if, while, etc. Then functions can return more than one value. Let's look at the first program which returns only one value. Here is a definition of a function called myFunction. It takes input from the user. Fname is a first name, Lname is last name, and then it returns. What does it return? It returns the concatenation of the two values which it has taken from the user. Fname, a space, and then Lname. Then what we are doing is you are taking a variable res and assigning the return value to the res and print the res value or return value here in the form of res, right? So what it does is it takes the first name and last name from the user, concatenates them in the function and returns the value, and that value is assigned to the variable res and it is printed. This is what we call return value. Let's look at where the return value is more than 1. we are defining a function here with two strings collected, input first string, input second string, and then concatenating the two strings. After concatenating, it should return all the three strings. How? It can return length of x, return length of y, return z. That is, it calculates the length of the word which it takes from the user, and it also calculates the length of the word which it takes as a second string from the user, then concatenates them and prints what is concatenated. In fact, we don't need to use length. We can even print return x, y, z, then it gives you the words which it has taken. But we are calculating the length here and giving it as return value. So three values are returned here. In the first program, we have seen only one value is returned. What is the value? The value returned is only the concatenation here. But here, after concatenation, it returns the length of two strings and the concatenated string. Then you invoke it. How do you invoke the function? You say a, b, c, that is three values you are taking with my function, right? Three return values, and then print a. What is a? A is a, which is here, which is nothing but length of x. Print b, b is length of y. Then c, c is z, that is the concatenated string. So when you give three values here, three variables here, a, b, c, they are matched with what is returned. So a matches with the length of x, b matches with the length of y, c matches with z. So it gives you all the three values, and all the three values are printed here. So this is a function which returns more than one value. Let's look at functions with arguments. Till now we have seen functions with no arguments. That's why when you are defining a function, we gave function without any value inside. We have given only empty parentheses, empty brackets. Now we want to give an argument within the bracket. So basically, for a function to take an argument, we use new variables in brackets. That is, we cannot use variables which are already used. We have to use new variables in the brackets. How? Take an example here. Here is a function with two arguments, def myfunc, with a and b inside the parenthesis. A is an argument, b is another argument. Colon, return the concatenation of the two arguments. Return a plus b. Print my function. Invoking now. I am invoking the thing. How am I invoking? Print my function 3 and 10 as the values. That is, 3 is assigned to a, 10 is assigned to b. So what does it do? When 3 is assigned to a and 10 is assigned to b, it adds 3 and 10, returns the value 13, and that is printed. This is numbers. In fact, we can even take strings. So I can invoke myfunc with this command. Print myfunc strings 2. Strings is assigned to the variable a. 2 is assigned as a value to the variable b, and both a and b are concatenated. So it prints the return value is strings 2, and that is printed. Right? Here is a function with two arguments. When we have more than one argument, we can invoke the function in more than one way. Right? Let's say you have two arguments. How do you invoke them? We have invoked by giving two values here, right? 3 and 10 and strings and 2. But there are other ways of invoking it. How? Look at the program given below. We have the function. The function is called the function with two arguments, x and y, and then return x and y, space y, that is concatenation of those two. We are taking only strings here. How do we invoke this function? The function is called the function. How do you invoke it? we can invoke it by assigning values to two variables in the function, the two arguments which are given there, like print the function one way. One is assigned to x, way is assigned to y. Or we can even take the argument name and assign a value to it. So x is the argument, x argument, that is given a value another, and y is another argument, and the value given it is way. So we can say the function x is equal to another, y equal to way. This is another way of invoking the function. There's a third way. The third way is you can invoke by using the second argument first argument second. Look at this, the function y equal to way, x is equal to yet another. That means the arguments which we give them, they can be used in any way we like. Either we can assign values without calling them, or we can call them and assign values, and we can call them in a different order and assign values. Right? There are three ways we can invoke when we have multiple arguments in a function. Now, functions with unspecified number of arguments. What we have seen is two arguments in the last slide. We can have three arguments, we can have four arguments. But let's say we need to use in a program arguments, but we don't know how many arguments. Right? We leave it to the user. How do we do that? So we need to have a command where we should have a function with unspecified number of arguments. Before using that, let's look at one more way of assigning value to an argument. The equal to sign can be used in the function declaration as well to give default values to the function arguments. Look at this program. Function with default for second argument. Second argument, we have a default value, oops, as the value given to y. So here is a function f with two arguments, x and y. The y is oops as the default value, and return x space and y concatenated. When we invoke the function, we are invoking it in three different ways here. F hat, we have given only one argument. This argument, we have given only value for one argument. That means this value will be assigned to x. Y is already there as oops. So this will print, that is the return value for this will be hat oops. Right? So it prints hat oops. Look at the second one. Again, the function has only one value. Again, chair as the value assigned to x. The default value is oops for y. So what does it print? It prints chair oops. But look at the third way. F function, then hat and chair. We are giving two values, but we have only one argument which is not given value. What happens then? Hat is assigned to x and chair replaces oops. So the value chair value is assigned to y. So this will print hat chair concatenated hat chair, hat space chair. Right? So we can use default value, but that can be overwritten by giving another value later. But if you have to use default value, if you have to use a particular value for several times, then it's better to give the default value by using equal to. Okay, now let's come back to unspecified number of arguments. We can also write functions with an unspecified number of arguments. A preceding asterisk before the argument. Right? You have an argument in the function. Before that, if you use one asterisk, that is a star, that indicates unspecified number of unnamed arguments. One asterisk represents unspecified number of unnamed arguments. This variable can then be used as a list in the function body. You can give a list of those things. If you use 2 asterisks, then you have to that indicates unspecified number of named arguments. Remember, unnamed and named. So you are going to give names for those arguments. Names are already given there. So the difference is 1 asterisk, 2 asterisk. We are going to look at these two in this program. What is the program here? Def, func, args and quarks. Args has 1 star, quarks has 2 stars. That means the first one is unnamed, unspecified number of unnamed arguments. The second one is unspecified named arguments. Okay, so let's print unnamed arguments. How are you going to do that? For A in args, so args is a list. In a list you have items. So A is one item. In args, the first item, you print A, right? And it prints, again goes back, prints the second argument. Still the number of arguments are finished, number of values are finished in this list. It prints, goes on prints. But remember, here we are not giving any names. The args, we do not have any names, we have only values. This will print unnamed args. Look at the second loop, for loop. K in quarks. For K in quarks, print K. K is a name now. K is a name, right? Print K, tab, quarks K. Okay, the K value, whatever K. So this prints all named args in the quarks. Okay, quarks, actually when you have a named one, basically we are going to use it as a dictionary function in the body. If it is a unnamed, we use list. If you are using quarks, that is if you are using named arguments, then we use a dictionary format. So func, we are invoking it now. Func 368 hat equal to wow, chair equal to 3.5. Look at these 368. These are unnamed. These will be assigned to args automatically. Once you start giving a name, hat equal to wow, this is assigned to quarks. Chair equal to 3.5. Okay, so this is how we invoke the arguments, whether it's named or unnamed, unspecified number of arguments. Okay, so we have learned in this video how to define functions and how to define variables in functions, what are the returning values of functions, then functions with 1 argument, 2 arguments or many arguments, and you also have functions with unspecified number of arguments. We'll see you in the next video.